film, and I wanted to ask you, Pamela, how do you feel the depiction of the world of classical music is in the film?
Oh, I think it's very exact, actually. I mean, especially, you get this bird's eye view into a blind audition in this film, and that's quite rare. And that's the way it is now, without prejudice, of course, except for the movie Tar, for anyone who saw that, where, it was with prejudice. But no, this is a fascinating insight into so many levels. For me, I really related, and maybe it's my age, but to Elena. Her decision to stop performing is so huge for any musician. And to me, that scene with her in the shower, when she was actually feeling the remorse and the angst and the pain, it was so moving to me. And that letter to Matthias, incredible, hoping that he'll find grace, But yeah, everything else, the music was so well chosen. You had the Max Bruch concerto for two pianos, which is very unusual choice. Beautiful. And then, of course, the Bartok concerto for percussion and orchestra. And one thing I want to say, Joe, that really affected me at the end, when Matthias does this audition and really dumbs down his talent to audition to be a member of the orchestra, a man of that level, with all his inner demons, when he chooses to play the J.S. Bach, that chorale is one of the most beautiful pieces ever arranged on piano by Ferruccio Busoni. And when he plays and he accepts himself again, it was so incredible to me, because actually the words to that chorale are, "I call out to you, Jesus Christ." And I just felt at that moment was his real awakening. I know you and I talked about this, that when he fainted, I know the director, Desplechin, really thought it was when he fainted in the elevator, which was so extraordinary. I mean, how many times have we seen a guy faint in a film? Right. It's always a woman.
True.
But no, to me it was that moment where he chose to play the Bach, and it was so beautiful, and Max finally was able to relax knowing he got his guy back, he got his performer back, with all of that suffering he went through. It was interesting. Dysfunctional musician, dysfunctional romance, really, I felt. A lot working through them.
I know that a lot of actors, when they reach a certain age, back away from the theater because they feel like they can't retain lines like they used to.
Yeah.
Elena talks about never wanting to go out there without a score. Is that something that you're aware of, older musicians who lose that?
Oh, without question. Without question. You'll see it start to happen, that there are certain musicians who won't go out without their score, actually. She was very brave at the end to not use that, and I loved that Matthias was actually willing to support her through that. That was so extraordinary. But in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's, it's music that's the last thing that leaves an individual. One can have Alzheimer's and still remember the words to a song, or still remember where your fingers go on the piano. And so I was particularly moved that she really wanted to pull away from performing that. Just that decision alone is most of the angst in this film to me. That's a huge decision for a performer. Performers never stop performing.
Right.
They don't really retire. So difficult. And Charlotte Rampling.
Fabulous actress.
Oh, Joe.
She's always been fortunate in that she's bilingual, and she has gone back and forth between English language and French language films throughout her career. And she's just, and as I said in the interview, if you watch it with Arnaud, he conceived the part for her, and he said that if she had turned it down, he probably would have changed it to a male character.
Wow, because she was steely and fragile, wasn't she? And like she said at the beginning, I'm a monster. And I've said this before when we did the beautiful film Les Musiciens, which I just adored. Musicians aren't normal people. They're never normal people. They, for Matthias to have become drunk and fallen into trash cans was taking his professional life in his hands. I mean, his hands, as Max pointed out. But, you know, there's no way that any musician can have a normal life. It's hard for professionals at that level to have relationships, as we've seen, you know, played out. So, you know, the movie was beautifully constructed, I thought, in that way, very realistically.
So there aren't many well-adjusted professional musicians.
No. They're mostly crazy. And the other thing is, Matthias, he's so good looking. I mean, Joe, really. You know,
He's one of the rising stars in
Oh my
France,
God.
LA, Francois Civil.
But look at him. I mean, he was built. Pianists are never, you know, really built like that. You know, pianists live in practice rooms and they never see the light of day. But I'm convinced that we need a sequel here. I think Matthias needs to come back, admit that he killed Pierre, and then runs off with his child. So, you know, we could have, you know, Deux Pianos, number 2.
But you really see the ending as he is going back into the world of being
Without
a
question. And you know when I first saw it, really, was when, in the blind audition, he leaned over to the other pianist, the woman, and said, "It'll be all right." He was already taking the mantle of Elena. And I thought that was really particularly beautiful, you know, really particularly beautiful. I thought it was so tragic also at the very beginning when he's on the plane and of course he's looking at the Bartok score. And the stewardess comes by and she goes, "Well, who are you? I mean, you know, you had so many admirers at the airport." And he goes, "I'm just a musician." And right from that point, I got it that Desplechin was really going to tell the tale of a professional who was so talented he couldn't handle his own talent. And definitely this love affair had just tipped everything over the brink. But you know, there are many professional musicians who self-destruct. Many who self-sabotage along the way because they literally cannot accept that responsibility. And on many levels, there are many who just can't handle it and many who drink, you know, to kind of dull it down. You know, like ballet dancers who get into the wings and they smoke to bring the adrenaline down, you know.
So the world of classical musicians is rife with that kind of self-destructive behavior as rock, as we've come to see it in pop music.
Oh, good Lord, yes. You know, it's so interesting. I remember I knew an artist once who worked at Disney, and he said that he would drink because he knew what a great artist he was, but he was working at Disney, and he had to stop himself from really feeling about what he wasn't attaining. And so I can only imagine this is what Matthias was doing as well, you know, and killing himself, that kind of exile to Japan for 8 years of his life. And as Elena said, you haven't even found who you are yet. You're not grown up yet. You haven't had that chance. But my favorite character in this entire film was Max. The long-suffering Max. And I love the way he would just look at Matthias and say, "Oh my God, this is getting unbearable. Stop it. You know, you're a child. You're always moaning." And, you know, it's true. These agents wait for their artists to have that moment where they seize it and they run with it. They know who they are. And definitely we found that at the end. I mean, look how excited Max was. They were going to do a road trip, 2 boys to Italy, you know, where he could build that career again for him. It was wonderful. But let me ask you.
Yes.
Outside of the music world, and yes, that was the Lyon Orchestra, by the way, and yes, Matthias, he did his own piano playing.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and in the Bach, you know, that piece was really hard, and he played it beautifully. But I noticed in the beginning they played a lot of octaves, which is simple, you know, for a non-pianist to play, but, you know, it's still very impressive, as well from Charlotte Rampling. Was Claude, and let's be honest, Claude really, she loved the flesh, didn't she? I mean, she loved her pleasure. Was she waiting for Matthias at the end to come and save her again? Or was she really saying goodbye to him?
I think that's open to interpretation, but I think she was ready to move on.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I think she saw that the son really recognized Pierre as his father, which he was, you know, not biologically maybe, but as the influence on his life. But I like this sort of film where there's room for you to think about
I do
where
too.
people are going to go afterwards.
I do
you know,
too.
It's unlike a Hollywood film, which tends to wrap everything up.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me, are all French children Simone's age, are they all that mature that they can look at their mom and say, well, I knew he's my dad. Is he going to come and live with us? I mean,
It does seem to have a lot of French cultural values in it that are slightly different from ours.
like her best friend sleeping with him.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, about blind auditions, is that a relatively recent phenomenon?
Yes, yes, yeah,
And that's so they literally don't know the gender, the race, any of that.
correct. Because, you know, for a long time, there were no black members
Right.
playing in any of the major orchestras in New York City outside of their own orchestras. I mean, it's shameful. And to really deny that kind of behavior, they started this blind audition business. They do it in competitions a lot too in Europe, where let's say I would be going to sing in something, and it's great because you don't have to dress up. You don't have to look like the opera singer, you know? You can just wear a sweatshirt as they did and show up. But I think it's a good thing. There's a lot of real talk about it, in that you've got that wall between you and who's listening to you. It stops sound. It stops the kind of ignition of the moment. But I think it is the best way. I do. You know, and it happens, yeah. It's a practice everywhere.
Yeah, I think you should really judge the artist and not what they look like or who
Exactly.
they are.
And women, I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. We could talk about many stories there, in orchestras especially. But the fact that he was willing to give up everything and just be a member of the orchestra as the pianist in the orchestra was so ridiculous. But yet he was willing to make that sacrifice. He found himself in the child. And did you find it just a little, before I knew what the film was really about, you know, and he's following Simone and he's taking pictures, it was really creepy.
It was creepy. The first time, I've seen it 3 times now, and the first time I was like, what is this? What's happening?
I thought, this is Death in Venice, à Lyon, you know?
But again, the director gives you time to put it all together,
Right.
and then he gets
Right.
the picture from his mother, and but it's really creepy when he's taking the phone, the cell
Yeah,
phone.
it was very unsettling. I found
Yeah.
that very unsettling the first time I watched it. But you know, this is a man who is desperate to be out of pain, really. You know, the drinking, the self-mutilation almost. But I'm so happy he found it in the end. And yes, very realistic, and with Elena's blessing.
Exactly. Any questions? We have time for a question or two. Yes.
Yeah, I have 2 points. One, well, I don't know if this is, the first question I have, do you also find that not just in, you have your spheres, orchestra, music, opera, or what have you, sing, it's brilliant discussion of the movie, but that you can correlate this with other artists, with writers, artists, painters,
Actors.
actors, that there is this, there can be a self-destructive aspect, the imposter syndrome, that I'm not good enough to do it.
Correct.
And the other part is I found creepy was the expression on Simone's face when he was in the playground. And I don't know if he was picking up something from his real father,
Yeah.
but he scared me also, that
He
what
did, actually.
What was going on.
Yeah, very seriously, that stare to Matthias. Is that what you? Yeah. That was something. There was a connection, definitely.
Absolutely.
And then finding that picture, you know.
Again, the director leaves you room for interpretation. He's one of the best French directors. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it. He did a picture called A Christmas Tale, which is about this very dysfunctional family coming together at Christmas. And Catherine Deneuve plays the major. Wonderful picture.
That was a bit of a slam dunk into Pierre's death, I thought. It was
That confused
so
me.
sudden.
That confused me the first time I watched it. Like, what's happening? And I guess he just had some sort of seizure or attack. They don't really ever explain what killed him.
But that's part of just LeShan's filmmaking process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
He likes little whimsical surprises.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting, interesting.
Was there another question over here?
Becky?
There.
Why did the director want to write this film for Charlotte Rampling? What was his?
Oh,
I think
Because obviously who she is, but was there some other motivation?
I think he must have had her in his mind's eye when he conceived because he, you know, there aren't a lot of actresses of that age range that I think would have all that character. You know, I mean, she's one of those film actresses you don't have to write a lot of dialogue for because her face says so much. But he said, you know, it's a terrible risk, and most filmmakers don't do that because they feel like if I don't get the actor I conceived it for, then what? And he in the interview he describes how there were times where he thought she was trying to pull out of it, and he was terrified. But she, you know,
I was just wondering whether there was something in her own personal story that was a parallel. But
I don't think so, because at one time, at one point, she contacted him, and again, he was afraid she was going to quit or pull out, and she said, there's you know, I have to bring these characters into myself, and there's a line in the script where she says something like, I'm afraid, and she said, I've never been afraid in my life, referring to herself. So he said, well, what about terrified? And she said, oh, that I understand. So they had a real close collaboration.
one thing I wanted to mention too, and did any of you come to see Les Musiciens that we did a few months ago? Beautiful film, as you know, and Joe and I had such a good time. I interviewed Daniel Garlitsky, one of the violinists in that movie, and he was actually playing the violin for Simone in his little recital in this film, which I thought was a really neat, you know, kind of
And you
coming
could
out.
hear that interview with him on Pam's podcast.
Yeah. Also, at the first party that Matthias went to, the composer himself, Gregoire Hetzel, was actually playing the piano. So, and I thought it was interesting, Joe, that his film score took a back seat to everything. He really laid low, except for that saxophone solo,
Yes.
which was very modern and evocative, perfect for the film.
I think he knew he had to leave room for
Yeah.
all of the music within the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could have used a little more of the piano concerto. I mean, you know, and maybe more of a solo recital in this, but yeah, when you have that caliber of musicians too.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Well, we want to leave time for you folks to have champagne and cake out in the lobby area, but let's thank Pam for coming.
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day!